Welcome back everybody, this is Grace, and today I'm going to be talking about the Flamepunch rifle, a Fire 100 proc weapon that I don't know quite how I feel about, but I actually do know because I figured it out and I made even a spreadsheet to help elucidate my points. But we're just going to be hanging out at the crossroads as I like to do when I'm talking about items. And let's see, what do I want? Yeah, Unity Squad, why not? Gonna be talking about the item. So, what this thing does is it's a 100 proc fire weapon with a -10 BTH lean, and it triggers to do 7.5% more damage against foes that are burning or bleeding or presumably poisoned or prismatic burn, but I haven't actually checked if that's working correctly. Also, it should work against permanent dots, but it might not due to funky coding stuff, but either way it's supposed to, so I'll judge it based off what it's supposed to do. Now, I like the weapon, and I like that it's got a -10 BTH lean and a +7.5% damage trigger. But that being said, it does have some hefty competition. Now, the last thing I should say about this weapon before I go and talk about its competition is this scope toggle. Laser sight deactivated, blocking and accuracy reverted to normal. Laser sight activated, lower block rate but boosted accuracy. So this lowers your blocking by 9, not visually, but it does. And it gives you plus 12.75 accuracy on your attacks, not your pet and guest, just your weapon attacks. So that's a pretty good toggle. I view it as, if it were damage, it would be plus 15% damage. So it's pretty good, and most people don't care about trading MRM for the effect. Or most people, unless you're a dodge build, you probably don't care that much. Although it does still increase your damage taken, because you do dodge some of the time, and this makes you dodge almost never. But it's a good thing to be able to boost your accuracy, particularly when we consider that dexterity has ramping BTH leans. More negative the more often you hit, more positive the less often you hit. But with that being said, I'm going to talk about some of the other options that compete with this, and then I'm going to talk in detail about BTH leans and where I think this weapon outperforms the other damage options. So starting off, I'm going to go with a pretty simple one. We've got the end weapon, which is, I forget the exact name, but there's a 0 proc and a 100 proc from the Pestilence boss fight. And what it does is it has a 98 SP click skill that does plus 25% damage. But the thing is, it's 6 hits, so it's really nice for damage caps. Yeah, I'm in the right setup. It's really nice for damage caps because it's 6 hits for a super cheap cost. It kind of just lets you get around damage caps. And because it's a 100 proc, it works really well with Luna Neko because it gets those bonuses on the bow type skill. Because when you click it, it's still a 100 proc style attack. Because it's 100 proc base weapon, you do get those Luna Neko accuracy and damage and status infliction effects. So big synergy for FD Rangers who use Luna Neko, but just good for anyone looking to circumvent damage caps on an FD build. So this weapon has a 4-hit 20 proc. I don't know if it's going on yet. Has it and I just wasn't paying attention? Very possible. But it's got a 4-hit 20 proc, but its average is 2 hits, like 2.3 or 4, I guess. Anyways, I'm not going to math it out exactly. Way lower hit count, even though it's higher damage and higher accuracy. Now the next one to compete with is Fireheart Warbow. Now, for those of you who don't know, Fireheart Warbow is a Harvest Fest reward for fighting actually a different version of Pestilence, funny enough, I think. And what it does is it trades 20% of its damage. It increases the damage you take by 18%, but that's actually worth 25% melee. And it trades its MC, so in total 50% melee is going to its effect, and its effect is a burn. It's a pretty great burn. It also has the utility that if you imbue, the burn follows that element. Also, it's got 2 hits or 6 hits, so average of 4. Average of 4 because they're both 50% chance of happening. So good for damage caps. Really, it's the strongest, one of the strongest status bows that you don't have to pay SP for. In terms of like overall output. So I really like that about it. I think it's a great item, great fire bow, and good for those FD builds who are trying to inflict statuses. If you're not trying to inflict statuses though, this weapon will outcompete it because it does higher pure damage. But there is a weapon that, in theory, does higher pure damage than this one, which is the Survivor's Blazing Rifle, which I believe comes from Mogluine, the Cauldron Quest. I don't know, something from Mogluine. Check the resources. Just Google it, you'll find it. If you need to know. But Survivor's Blazing Rifle also has a -10 BTH lane, and what it does is it pays HP to have a Bloodblade effect. So it just gets plus 20% damage flat, just off the rip. Now that is a strong competitor, and remember this weapon has a -10 BTH lean, so they're equal on the BTH lean front. But this one negates it with the accuracy, and it gets 7.5% damage out of the trigger on burns. And I'm going to assume you can always get the trigger because we've got permanent burns now, and we've got permanent prismatic burn. It might not work, again it might be bugged, but it should work. I'm going to go off that. Oh, I don't have an energy. Ooh, hope this guy doesn't one-shot me. No, we're fine. Yeah, there's the 20 proc. But anyways, so this does have an accuracy benefit, but it only has 7.5% damage compared to the 20% that the I have to remember the SP attack this time. 20% of the Survivor's Blazing Rifle. Now with that being said, I did say that 12.5% BTH is equal in terms of value to 15 damage, in theory, on paper, but I'm going to run through some situations, and the main thing here is where we're going to get into BTH leans and how they actually work and what will happen depending on your circumstance. So I'm going to read off my spreadsheet here, but BTH leans, and I should be showing you this. This is how they work very basically. Oh, I hope I wasn't recording. Whatever, might have to edit a little bit. Anyways, back on track. This is how BTH leans very basically work. The player is expected to hit 85% of the time. So if you lose, for example, 10 bonus to hit, your accuracy is now 75%. To account for that though, the player deals more damage if you have a negative BTH lean. The damage increase, whether it's negative or positive, is equal to 85 divided by 85 plus the BTH change. So if you have negative BTH lean, you'll increase your damage because 85 divided by a number less than 85 is going to be higher than 1. And if you have a positive BTH lean, you'll decrease your damage because 85 divided by a number greater than 85 is less than 1. In this case, this example we're using is -10, so 85 divided by 75 is a 1.13x damage multiplier. Now the last thing, that's how it works, but the important thing is that these damage increases are not linear. Going from 0 to 10 BTH is a much smaller change in damage than, for example, going from -30 to -40. You go at 0 to 10, you go from 1 to 1.13. At 30 to 40, you go from 1.54 to 1.89. So a 13% damage increase versus a 35% damage increase. Now apologies for just reading that out loud randomly. But that's the basics of BTH lanes if you didn't know how they worked in detail. If you did, sorry for the doubling up on your knowledge. But now what I'm going to show you is a way to very roughly understand the value of BTH depending on your BTH lane. Now first off, your bonus to hit does nothing if you already are hitting 100% of the time. So look at this guy, 67 range defense. My base accuracy I think is 79 just from 250 dex and the gear I'm using, or 78 maybe, yeah. Just from like any weapon, it doesn't even have to be this weapon. But then we add in Lunan Echo gives me 8 dexterity, or 50 dexterity, which is another 8 BTH. It gives me a passive 4.25, so that's another 4. Then you add this weapon, we get 12.75. Then you add this guy's Death Loss, because we're going to start using that for whatever reason. You add in my Miss, which gives me, I think, 10, maybe? anyways, what I'm saying is, when I started the battle, I was way overcapped on BTH, so if I had this toggle on or off, it doesn't change my damage output at all. And you'll probably find, depending on your loadout, that will happen a lot. If, for example, you run Moonwalker's Grace, that's another 18 bonus to hit off the rip. If you still use New Year's Surprise, which I've been thinking about using more, actually, randomly, but that's not really relevant. If you think about using New Year's Surprise, that's another 16 bonus to hit. I kind of forget. But all of these things can very quickly mean that stacking more accuracy does nothing to increase your damage. So that is where the value of accuracy comes in. So this graph you've been looking at for a while now, or this chart, excuse me, assumes that you are hitting 100% of the time, just barely. And if you lost your BTH boost, you would stop hitting 100% of the time. I mean, the assumption is a little weird, but basically what it's showing is the lower your BTH lean is, the more BTH is valuable. So if you're at a minus 20 BTH lean, getting 5 bonus to hit will only give you like a 10% damage increase. If you're at a minus 40 BTH lean, 5 more to hit will give you like a 20% damage increase. If you're at a minus 50 BTH lean, God forbid you ever get that high. Let me actually show you this. Yeah, so minus 45 here, although it's not quite accurate, but we'll talk about that. If you ever get to a minus 50 BTH lean, a true minus 50 BTH lean, you'll get 30% damage from that 5 BTH. And these numbers go higher and higher if you have 10 BTH, 15 BTH, or, for example, 12.75 from this weapon. So the difference in having 12.75 BTH here, if you're at a minus 50 BTH lean, is almost 20% damage. So that entirely makes up for the difference between the Blazing Survivor's Rifle and the Flamepunch rifle. So if you get to a low negative BTH lean, the Flamepunch rifle will outperform the Blazing Survivor's Rifle. Not even counting that Blazing Survivor's Rifle is an additive damage boost and BTH leans are multiplicative, so in some situations, if you're stacking a lot of additive boosts, you'll get way more off the multiplicative than you would off of the additive. But I'm not even counting that. So basically, if you're going hella into the negatives for BTH, then this weapon will perform better. Exactly how far, it's pretty hard to guess and it will depend on your setup, but let's look at this. I played 10 turns here, and I played 10 turns, and let's see where my ranged ramping was at this point. Sorry, I just cannot see. Okay, so here it was negative 41, and I think below here it was negative 45. Yeah, there we go. Just took me a minute to find that. But keep in mind, once you get past negative 20, the accuracy decrease is twice as much as it claims. So negative 40 is actually a negative 30 BTH lean, truly. I shouldn't say as it claims. The penalty, so the decrease in accuracy, it goes at twice the speed. So when you get to what would be a negative 30 BTH lean, you have negative 40. So I think this would be negative 32.6 or something, negative 32.69. Funny number. Which is about right, I think. But that is ignoring the 10 on the weapon. So we had a negative 32, and we're actually going to reduce that by 10, so negative 42. So I was getting about a 2x damage multiplier. So the 12 accuracy that I was getting there does matter more at that point than the 12% damage I would have had if I had the Survivor's Blazing Rifle instead of this weapon with the burn trigger. So what does all this mean? I don't know for sure, but basically, if you are going to be using Legion Fenrir, Grakmahorn, another source of Berserk, or if you're going to be spamming high hit count abilities to ramp your BTH really hard, and then you're going to be using accuracy steroids, this weapon having an efficient accuracy steroid will objectively outperform Survivor's Blazing Rifle. That being said, it might just outperform it for general use anyways. Having a free, as in zero upkeep, accuracy boost and a free, if you're using Solar Luna Echo, 7.5% damage boost because you'll already be using burns and bleeds. It might just be better than having a HP cost 20% damage boost for most players. So all in all, I was very hesitant on this weapon when it first came out, but after looking at how, first of all, how easy it is to stack accuracy on Rangers. Oh, and I forgot even the style bonus gives you 4.25 VTH too, so. Anyways, it's super easy to stack accuracy on Rangers. I really recommend Moonwalker's Grace and or a Dex Misc or this Misc here, the Ranger Scope, and Luna Echo to be honest, but that's not for everyone. I mean, it should be. I mean, whatever. I'm getting distracted. This weapon, because it gives you accuracy and because it's 0 upkeep, I think really can compete with Survivor's Blazing Rifle in a lot of situations. And for generic use, the damage difference isn't that high, and the accuracy bonus you'll get from this for no upkeep will be pretty handy. Makes it a lot easier to just kill things and not worry about your accuracy. In longer fights, your BTH lean will ramp down, so it'll be nice to have. All in all, very nice weapon. I really do like it, and I think it's pretty great. Got to the red star on Crystal Reef, awesome. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this weapon. Definitely went in detail, definitely talked a lot about BTH leans without too much visual aid. Let me know what you think. Was it incoherent? Was it helpful? Was it interesting? I'd love to hear your opinions. But with that being said, spread some peace and love, have a great day, and take good care of yourself.